Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, those first few videos I put out, you know, it's kind of like boxing. You know, you get your rounds of sparring, and then you start fighting for real. So this video, consider this the fighting for real, because we're gonna go vintage BT here. As you can see by the title, obviously, it's not really too hard to figure out what I thought of the Triple G Canelo fight. I'll be clear early on in the video, and I'll be clear throughout the video. I thought Triple G won 7-5. It was a very close fight. In many ways, a very different fight than the first one. And I would even say, like, you know, Triple G versus Canelo, you know, the rematch was one of the very few times in boxing where the second fight, as far as excitement goes, is better than the first. You know, I thought this fight, for a variety of reasons, was just better from an excitement standpoint. We'll start with the obvious. I think both fighters did a great job of making each other, you know, fight for longer periods of time. There was more exchanges. There was more just cleaner, harder shots landed in this fight, I think. And that was a result of, I would say, it started with Canelo being the smaller man, and he wasn't on his back foot as much in this fight. In fact, you would actually could say that for the first half of the fight, at least for the first half of the fight, it was Canelo who was the aggressor, and it was Canelo that had Triple G kind of picking his shots more selectively. That doesn't mean that Triple G wasn't efficient in winning some rounds, but I'm just saying the way Canelo approached the fight made the fight more exciting. So tactically, I thought the fight was more interesting to watch. The exchange, like I mentioned earlier, Triple G, as the fight went on, he made some great adjustments. He began to hang in the pocket as the fight went along. You know, obviously, it wasn't hard to see that Triple G he's aging, he's slower, things of that nature. So obviously, fighting a younger fighter in his prime, he had to be very selective with his shots. But I thought he did a great job throughout the course of the fight, controlling Canelo with the jab. He was able a lot of the times too, like with Canelo, Canelo threw these like real eye-catching shots, right? And early in the fight, a lot of them were landing. I'll give him that. And it's kind of like, you know, Canelo in this fight, I'm going to use this term, Canelo had what I call in boxing the Amir Khan effect, you know, where a fighter who throws very fast, flashy combinations, you know, it takes a couple rounds to get used to their speed. So that happens with Amir Khan a lot. That's why in a lot of his fights, whether he wins or he loses, it always takes his opponents maybe a couple rounds to stop him and figure him out. It happened when Canelo fought him, it happened when Danny Garcia fought him. You know, it's always been the case with Khan. In this case with Canelo, I think the same effect was had here against Triple G. Early, you know, this fight to me, if you scored a draw, I honestly say, like, I would have no problems with that. You know, personally, I think Triple G, even if you scored a draw, I still think Triple G should get a decision because, again, I believe that when you are the challenger, you have to take the belt from the champion. A lot of people say, well, Canelo did take the belt from the champion, but I don't believe he did. Let me tell you why I don't think he did take the belt from Triple G. He didn't really, like, he tried to. It wasn't for lack of effort. I just don't think there were enough rounds you could give him to ultimately give him the fight. And this is also going to play into something else that I wanted to kind of get into in this video, which is just what I call the BS of boxing scoring. And I'm going to use examples from other fights to illustrate what I'm saying, because there seems to be this, whenever there's two world-class fighters in the ring in a big fight, whoever is perceived as more of the puncher, more of the knockout artist, it's almost like when people score fights for the knockout artist or the puncher, that the puncher or knockout artist, he cannot get any credit for boxing skills. He cannot get any credit for switching his style or having to make an adjustment against another world-class fighter. It happens freaking seemingly in every close fight where there's a you know, a guy who's more of a boxer versus a guy who's a puncher. The most recent example I can give of this, because it was a fight I talked about and beat it like a horse until I was done talking about it, was Andre Ward versus Kovalev. Kovalev was, and I'm using the first fight just so you know, the first fight as an example. Kovalev was known as one of the most devastating punchers in boxing as he was. But as I said many times before that fight happened and after, he also had some of the better boxing skills in the sport. He is just for as good of a puncher he was I would say he was just as good a boxer. You know, that's just my opinion. But what happened was, you know, he was destroying Andre Ward in the first 4 to 5 rounds, and really he won the first 4 rounds plus the knockdowns. That's 5 points right there already off rip. But when Andre Ward started, you know, he was still losing. There were some of those middle rounds, like round 6 of that fight, round 8 of that fight. There was so many rounds. There was rounds that Andre was losing, but he wasn't losing as badly as he was early in the fight. So because he wasn't losing as badly, people were giving him rounds for that, right? And because Kovalev wasn't literally like, because Kovalev didn't put this man in a coma or something like that, he wasn't getting credit for rounds. So the same thing happens with Triple G. You know, when Triple G, and both, not just this fight, but the first fight as well, Triple G, because he decides that, hey, this guy throws really fast combinations. He might hit me with a punch I don't see. He's younger. He's younger. You know, maybe he's a bit stronger. I don't know. But he clearly had faster hands in there. So Triple G used that amateur pedigree. He made the adjustment early on in the fight. He said, look, I'm not gonna get hit with too many of these punches. I'm gonna let him throw these punches, blow his load, and then as the fight goes on, I'm gonna sit more in the pocket, and then I'm gonna fight him as his punches get more wide and he fatigues a little more. And that's what he did as the fight wore on. You know, you saw him in those middle to late rounds, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know, those rounds, Triple G was able to land, I believe, some of the most effective punches in the fight. And I would venture to say that if you go back and you watch the fight, Triple G was really the only, you can't really say Canelo hurt Triple G, and in the sense of like he made him get on his back foot, or made him, well, no, I don't want to say that. Well, he made him like where he was really like in trouble. Like maybe he buzzed him with some shots, but Triple G was never really in trouble because his chin's so durable, and because really, even though Canelo was hitting him, he didn't hit him with some of the flush shots landed in the first fight. So with that being said, you can't say the same for Canelo in regards to Triple G, because Canelo when Triple G finally got confident enough to sit there in the pocket and he found those shots, and Canelo got a little slower, then he would clip him with rights, some left hooks, some rights, and you know, Canelo was visibly hurt, you know? So I think in this fight, even though I would say the fight was closer just because of the manner in which Canelo fought, I would say Triple G did a better job of landing more effective shots, because in the first fight, I thought Triple G won that fight purely just because for one, he wore down Canelo, all right? Even as the older fighter, he wore down Canelo. He outboxed him, outjabbed him, but Willie didn't load up on too many shots to try to hurt Canelo. But it didn't have to, because, you know, Canelo couldn't find Triple G for most of the fight in the first fight. Straight up and down, he couldn't. So I thought he outpointed him in that fight. I thought that card was actually wider than this one. This one was closer just because I think Canelo, being that he'd been in the ring for Triple G for 12 rounds, he was able to he knew what he was getting himself into. But regardless, I thought the amateur pedigree of Triple G, the boxing IQ of Triple G, you know, it won him this fight. And to me, he's on the wrong side of history. He is on the wrong side of history because, and I'm going to use middleweight to the past, and this is not exactly the same, but it's kind of like when Marvin Hagler, you know, Marvelous Marvin Hagler fought Sugar Ray Leonard. You know, Marvelous Marvin Hagler was the top middleweight in the sport for years. Number one, you know, beat all the top contenders. You know, had to wait so long to become champion. Beat guys like John Mugabe and Monroe and all those guys to become the champion. And then when he became the champion, then he really wasn't appreciated as a champion. And Sugar Ray Leonard was in his division. You know, he was kind of the clean cut golden boy of not just the division but boxing at large. He was one of the 7-Up commercials with the little drinks and whatnot. And you know, they had the whole thing where Leonard called everybody to this big announcement he was supposed to make, and everybody anticipated that it would be to fight Hagler, but no, it was to announce retirement. Then he was retired for like 3 or 4 years, and then once Hagler had gotten comfortable and was about to leave the sport, then he says out of nowhere, okay, I'm going to come back, and then he fights Hagler. And, you know, I've watched that fight too. I did a video on it earlier this year, a film study on it, and I thought that Hagler won that fight as well. I thought Hagler won that fight, even though I think he gave a lot of the early rounds away. I thought he definitely won that fight, and it was the same thing. You know, Sugar Leonard would not do a lot of work for a lot of those rounds, and he'd wait the last 30 seconds, and he'd throw these shoe-shine combinations, wouldn't land a lot of them, but he would get credit for them, and the crowd loved them, so it influenced the judges. But it's the same thing in the sense of Leonard, who was the clear-cut money draw. You know, him winning that title was just what was better for, you know, boxing business, you know, quote unquote. And that's just what it was. And Hagler felt wrong on that night, and he walked with the damn ring. Okay? History repeats itself again. Triple G, been the middleweight champion for what? 6, 7 years, however long it's been. You know, got ducked by Sergio Martinez, got ducked by, you know, Miguel Cotto, got ducked by so many damn fighters. A lot of these guys didn't want to fight him. And then Canelo, who could have fought him, what, 2 or 3 years ago, been ducking him. Much like Leonard didn't want to fight Hagler when Hagler was in his prime, at the top of his game. He then decides, okay, I'm gonna fight him now. You know, they had 2 fights, and the first one, he was lucky to get a draw. He really should have lost. The second one, you know, I still thought Triple G won, and a lot of people thought Triple G won. And him being the guy that's gonna help Vegas, and he's the establishment guy, he got the decision. And I remember, I was there, I was watching the fight, and I said to myself, I was with my friend Alex, and for those of you who watch the channel, you know Alex. He's a big, massive Triple G fan. To put it to you honestly, Triple G is the reason why he likes boxing, okay? So I'm telling Alex before the decision was announced, I said, look, and this is just me knowing the history of boxing, me knowing, like, man, Larry Holmes didn't get out of boxing undefeated. They wouldn't let him have his moment against Michael Spinks, where he could have broke Marciano's record. They didn't let him get out undefeated, okay? Robo Gonzalez, they didn't let him get out undefeated. A lot of these guys, they just don't get out of the sport undefeated, especially if you're in Vegas and you're fighting a Mexican fighter like Canelo, who brings that kind of money to the table. He wasn't gonna get out undefeated, so I knew what I watched. I knew what was gonna happen. If he didn't knock him out, he's not getting a W. And lo and behold, Canelo got the decision. So overall, like, what are my thoughts on this whole fight? You know, first of all, I'll say this. I'll give credit where credit is due. Canelo, he fought a very, I would say in many ways, my respect for him as a fighter, strictly as a fighter, has went up. But then again, I have to kind of like temper that because of all the cheating and the clenbuterol, and how the WBC, you know, gave him a BS slap on the wrist. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about just the fight, but you know, I give him his credit. He went in there, he fought a guy, Triple G, who's going to go down as one of the best middleweights of all time. As a smaller man, took the fight to him in many ways. Wasn't always successful, but, you know, had his fair share of success. And, you know, he boxed 24 rounds, Triple G. Think about that. He's boxed 24 rounds with Triple G. Never got knocked down once. That within itself is an accomplishment. So I'll give him credit. As to what I think he should do next, you know, I think they should just have a. I mean, I really don't want to see a third fight, because I already know what's going to happen. Either he's going to knock Triple G out, or he'll just get another GIP decision. So that's what it is. But I would like to see him fight David Lemieux. I think that'd be a good fight. It'd be an entertaining fight. Lemieux's been talking up a big game, so it'd be fun to see. As Triple G, I think it's time to hang it up, man. Like you've had a fantastic career. These are your big fights. Unfortunately, you didn't win them. But I'll go on the record, man. I'll end the video like this. He's on the wrong side of history. Like, I don't think these were, like, I'm not gonna characterize the second fight as a clear robbery, because I think there's definitely a case to be made for Canelo to get a draw. I won't say that there's enough rounds to give him a win, but I'll say a draw, because there were definitely some swing rounds in that fight. And you know, I myself gave him 5 rounds, so I mean, I could definitely find a round that I get Triple G for Canelo, at least one. So I could see a draw. Can't really see a win. But I think regardless of if you think Triple G won this fight or not, based on what happened in the first fight and how this went, you know, he's on the wrong side of history. When history books are in, like as Mayweather would say, when history books are in, he's going to go down on his record with 2 L's on his resume against Canelo Alvarez. And that's a crying shame for a guy that's had one of the better middleweight title reigns in boxing history, a guy that's, you know, knocked opponents out left and right, a guy that, you know, is one of the all-time greats of the division. You know, in his signature fights, he is not credited with the W. And to me, that as a boxing fan, that leaves a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, as many, you know, other fights that have had, fighters that have had multiple fights, you know, Kovalev, Ward. Some people even think Bo Holyfield, a lot of people think Bo won all 3 fights, really. So, it is what it is. But yeah, I'll just say that Triple G, to me, definitely, like every fight since the Kell Brook fight, he's declined a little bit. And I think if he were to fight Canelo in the third fight, I will be very confident in saying that, you know, I think Canelo will be able to stop him, really, to be honest with you. Because the first fight, because, you know, the one thing that I continue to notice about Triple G when he fights Canelo is that he does not at all want to commit to throwing any sort of body punches to Canelo. And what that tells me, watching the fights, is that he doesn't want to throw any body punches to Canelo, because look, if you throw a body punch, right? If you throw a body punch to Canelo, so you got if it's a hook, you got to come in like this, you know. And Triple G is old. He's a little older, so he doesn't have the quick feet to get in and get out. So in knowing that, he knows that if he commits to any shots from Canelo to the body and they don't land cleanly, or they graze him, or if he parries or rolls a shot, you know, that's gonna set him up to maybe get countered with an uppercut, a hook, any of that stuff, and it could really put him in a world of hurt. Which is why you look, you know, not to use CompuBox numbers, because I think it's complete BS, but they give you a good barometer of not necessarily how punches landed, but I like to use it for where punches are being thrown. He really wasn't throwing a lot of punches to his body, like, and you only have to look at the numbers to see that. In the first fight he did it, and in the second fight he didn't. And I think in many ways that was very telling of how he looks at Canelo in the ring. He knows Canelo's quicker. He knows Canelo is a fantastic counterpuncher. He knows Canelo has the ability to connect with counter uppercuts. You know, really that counter uppercut is one of his money punches. You know, if you go back and watch the Cotto fight, he landed some brilliant counter uppercuts on Cotto. And Triple G didn't want to be victimized of that. So he did what by not committing to the body the way maybe people like Roy Jones wanted him to, he was in a very indirect way taking away one of Canelo's biggest strengths. So that's why he was able to have the most success. But I think that gets kind of overlooked just because people just say, oh, well, he didn't throw any body punches. Well, yeah, he's not throwing any body punches because he knows that one of Canelo's biggest strengths is counter punching, and by Triple G overcommitting to the body, he's going to be susceptible to that because he doesn't have the footwork to get in and out like he did maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So that's just an observation I had watching the fights. But this is my take on the fight. You know, I scored it 7-5 for Triple G. You guys can give me yours down below. I like to hear it because I've had people already in my comments say that they wanted to hear about this fight from me. So that's what it is, man. I think it's just history repeating itself, much like, in many ways, like Hagler Leonard. It's almost like Hagler Leonard repeating itself. And Triple G, who's been compared to Hagler by many people on YouTube for various reasons, and some people may say it as blasphemous, but for various reasons he's been dubbed by some as this era's Marvin Hagler. I think it's appropriate. Definitely in this scenario. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Who did you have winning the fight? Give me your scorecards. Let me know what you guys think about some of my observations of the fight. Give me some of yours in the comments down below. Like I say in every single video, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just giving dang it. So until next time, take care, guys.